Greetings, friend, and welcome to the Between the Covers podcast, where we are working every day to remove the self-limiting beliefs that are preventing us from becoming the heroes of our own stories. I am Marcus Spar, and I just want to do a quick reminder. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to the audio version, then please give this podcast a 5-star rating and leave a review. And if you have any questions, please get in touch with me. Any questions, comments, suggestions for people that we can research or interview for future hero studies, you can reach me at questions.btcpod@gmail.com. With all that out of the way, let's talk about finding your advocate, finding my advocate, finding our advocates. This is something that has been coming up more and more in conversations I've had with some of my clients, where it can be very challenging to find people who are willing to listen to our struggles, to actually not just try and jump in and help, but also ask questions. And at the same time, it's also a challenge to find the people who are willing to stand either behind us or beside us in order to help us actually ask for what it is that we need. And this is something that has been coming up in many more conversations that I've had with some clients lately, where I am having to be that advocate for them. And honestly, it's an honor and a privilege to be able to just advocate for these people. I finished a conversation with a client just a little bit ago who is really struggling right now in trying to find his own place, trying to find a job that's going to support him and his kids, and just to help him get out from the overbearing thumb of some of the family that he is staying with. And it's honestly just kind of making his and his kids' life just a living hell right now. And he desperately wants to get out. Yet, one of the things that he's having a hard time with is trying to figure out, he's a single parent, and what is he going to do when he gets a job that is going to require him being at work very early in the morning, and who's going to help his kids get to the school bus, make sure that they are getting up, that they're getting ready, and that they are going to school. With the kind of jobs that are available to him, I mean, he sometimes has to show up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, maybe even earlier. And, you know, his kids' classes, their schools don't start until around 8 o'clock. That's not really the most ideal situation for him to be in. And it's actually been the last 2 weeks that he and I have met together that instead of just helping him with just talking about what's causing the stressors and how he's handling them and talking about some maladaptive coping mechanisms, it's been more of, hey, let me help you with this. Let me do some research. Let's see what we can do here in order to help you get into the best possible situation that you can be. Not just with his kids, not just with his job, but if we can help him get rid of a lot of these stressors, then it's going to take away a lot of the need for these coping mechanisms that he doesn't want to have anymore. Last week, the thing that I had done to help him was I was helping him set up a profile for it was a state-sponsored work or employment assistance program. And as we were talking about it, he was like, I'm just having a hard time with this because there are certain things that just aren't working on my phone. he doesn't have a computer. He only has his phone. And so I was offering him the suggestion of, is there a chance that you're going to be able to find time to go to the library in order to have a computer to work this out? And then I just kind of looked down at the bottom corner of my monitor and I'm like, we've got time. How about I just help you set this up? And he was totally agreeable to it. And so I'm helping him come up with username, password, security questions, and all this kind of stuff. And I know that for some people, that's like, geez, man, that takes a huge level of trust to have someone do that kind of stuff. And this client trusts me to do that because I'm not going to do anything to make things more difficult for him in finding a job. I don't care about helping him with the password and the username. In fact, I'm so bad about remembering my own passwords. It was probably just a matter of hours before his login information was totally out of my brain. And I was able to help him troubleshoot some of this stuff. It was one of those situations where he probably could have made this work on his phone. But when he got to a point where he was like, okay, let's move on to the next page, he's like, it froze. It's like it just stopped working. Well, on my computer, we kind of ran into the same thing. It took some sleuthing to discover what was going on. And that was, the system was saying that the username that he had provided was invalid. And it took me a little bit to find this information. And then once we were able to get that figured out, we were able to fill out all of the essentials that he needed for his profile, and he now is able to go on this employment assistance program's website and start looking for jobs and start applying for some of these jobs. This is something that an advocate can do. They can actually help you with some of these very tough, challenging, technologically out of your wheelhouse kind of tasks. And when I was going through a coaching certification program, one of the things that ended up coming up was just the many different roles that I can have as a coach. It's not just someone who is going to create this safe space to ask questions, to let them just talk about whatever is on their heart and their mind. Sometimes I have to be a cheerleader. Sometimes I have to be the person who is pointing out, hey, you can do this. You're capable. You're strong. You have everything you need. And be that cheering support that my clients need in order to help them make it to the next stepping stone on their journey. And I was even reminded of a story that my mentor had shared with me. And she was sharing how she had spent quite a bit of time working in what do they call it? Like a midway house or something like that. It was a house specifically for people who are trying to get clean from some kind of substance addiction. And one of the things with this was they had to have these meetings with their support system, with their coaches, and some of these people, they were having to, maybe get in touch with a parole officer, maybe reach out to an employment service or make calls in order to check in with applications or whatever it happened to be, that was going to help them get to where they wanted to be. And my coach and my mentor Lori had shared that there is this one gal that she was working with that was like, hey, before you leave, we're going to make this call. I will be here with you. I will help you. I will advocate for you. If you start getting stressed out, if you start getting overwhelmed, I am here to ground you. I am here to intercede for you. And that was what my client needed. Not just today, but last week as well. I was able to help him get into one of his state's like premium, whatever kind of employment assistance programs that he was struggling to get into. Now he can. And now he can look, now he can apply. I was able to help him with that. And then for our conversation today, instead of talking about, man, you've got a lot of stressors, this really sucks, and, what do you need to get some support? It's like, hey, let's look at a hypothetical situation here. Let's pretend that you're able to get an apartment in one of these complexes that are like really close to your district, but unfortunately they're also outside of the school that his kids are going to be attending. Hey, let's do some research. It looks like you are able to move your kids into a different school. Okay, great. So he doesn't need to worry so much about that. His kids can still stay in their school. They can still be with their friends. And then that ran into the problem of, well, he's going to have to transport them. How is he going to do that if he has to be to work about 3 hours before his kids have to be at school? The childcare has been a real struggle with the kind of work that he has to do, and being a single parent, he doesn't have a significant other who he can rely on to help the kids get up and go to school. That has been a struggle for him for a while now. And we were able to try and look at some alternatives to just like a daycare. Daycares that tend to operate under the purview that you are going to be dropping your kids off right before you go to work, at a normal working time, like 8 o'clock. Okay, drop the kids off at 7:30. You pick them up at, this time based on the typical 9 to 4 job. And he's not going to have a job like that. So he needed to figure something else out. So we were looking instead at what he can do, for maybe looking for an in-house nanny who can help out for 3 hours a day during the work week. And then we had to figure out, okay, how much is that going to cost? And I crunched some numbers for him, and there was a little bit of sticker shock that he had to deal with. And these are all ways that I am able to advocate for him. I am helping him by asking these questions. I am helping him by crunching the numbers. I am helping him to figure out what he can afford and what are the options available to him. This is the value of an advocate. And as I said, it is an honor and a privilege to be able to advocate for other people. If it really came down to it, my transgender friends, if they were needing someone to advocate for them, I would be one of the first people that's like, yes, let me help you. I want to advocate for you to get what you deserve, to get what you need. If it's my friends, if there's any kind of relationship struggles, if there's job woes, which, they've been helping to advocate for me with my job woes of trying to find a part-time job, it is something that we don't have to do alone. And that's really what an advocate is. An advocate is someone who is helping us in these areas that we can struggle to handle just by ourselves. And to get into probably one of the most, I guess I would say, troubling situations where I can be an advocate is with my partner Libby when she has to go to a medical appointment. It's a real shame that in this modern age that women's healthcare is still not really where it could be. And there are a lot of things that, a lot of stigmas really, that can still come up within the dynamics of women in medical appointments, in hospitals, speaking with their doctors. They oftentimes need someone to advocate for them because they need someone who is not, oh gosh, if we really get into the old-fashioned medical terms that were bandied about for decades before now, that even just the notion of someone acting hysterical is sexist in general, because it referred to women being emotional and going into a hysteria. And so there is this sexist notion tied to this understanding of someone being hysterical. They're not in their right mind. And this is something that can still come up a lot in the medical system. I have heard so many times that if there is something that a woman needs to have looked at from a doctor, sometimes it can be so hard to get them to look in the right place because the doctors are wondering, okay, does this have to do with your period? Does it have to do with a woman's unique physiology? Is there the potential for pregnancy or something like that? Oh, you know what? It'll pass through. It'll be fine once you're over like the next week or two. Just whatever that bullshit is. That's not how it should be. And that's something that Libby has really struggled with. She feels like whenever she goes in to speak with some kind of medical professional that she has to defend herself. She has to defend for her needs. She has to, oh gosh, what's that saying in terms of like men and women in work, that women have to work twice as hard to earn half as much? It's almost like she has to work twice as hard just to be heard by certain medical professionals. And this is an area where I can help be an advocate for her. I am not afraid to call people out on their bullshit. I am not afraid to stand up and say, hey, can you please listen to what's going on here? This is something that we find to be very important, and we would like for you to look into it. Oh, you don't think that's an actual issue? We still want you to look into it. Let's at least rule it out before we just pass it aside as not being the problem. And it sucks. It really sucks that these people have to struggle with these issues, that they constantly have to run into these roadblocks. Man, this client that I've been working with, he and I have been working together for like over 2 years. And that's not ideal. It's not ideal to be working with someone for that long, but I have helped him navigate so many life changes that neither one of us could have predicted at all. In fact, I think it was just last week, he gave me one of the best compliments in that in the over 2 years that he and I have been working together, I have helped him move out into his own place. I've helped him to regain custody of his kids. I have helped him go back to school. I have helped him get his CDLA license. I have helped support him through a lot of these big changes. And I have had to be there as an advocate and a cheerleader and a coach. And it's something that I feel like we all need. Hell, I need cheerleaders. I need someone who can advocate for me at times. I can be so lost sometimes in just trying to help other people meet their own needs that I'm totally ignoring my own. And I have had people step out and remind me, hey, you're allowed to have needs yourself, and you're allowed to take care of those needs. And whenever someone tells me that, I can't help but laugh at myself because I have said those exact same things to clients. And it's one of those things where I have found it so much easier to say to others than to say to myself. And it's so beneficial to have someone advocate for me when I'm struggling to do that for myself. This is what advocates do. These are people that will help us to get over the hurdles that are blocking our ways. They will help us to develop the skills. They will help us to look outside the box, to see things from a very different perspective, from the kind of penned in, narrow focus that we often will look at the world through. This is what an advocate can do. And if this is something that you would like to have in your life, I just want to remind you, this is what I do. I help people to get where they want to be, to truly become the heroes in their own stories. And that can be a rather long process, and I'm not going to be there for every step, but I will definitely do my part. If this is something that you are interested in, then there is a link in the description and the show notes where you can just set up a free hour-long call. We can talk about what it is that you need and how I can support you, and if we're going to be a good fit for each other. I do not want to waste your time if I'm not going to be the right person. I'm not going to waste your time with let's at least try this out. No, I can try and help you find someone who is going to be a good fit. And with that reminder aside, I just want to say it is so important for you to have those advocates, for you to have that support network, the people who are willing to stand beside or behind you and ask the hard questions, not just of you, but of other people. These are the people that can help to make those phone calls, to help send out the emails, to look over something in order to make sure that there isn't some, maybe for them, a glaring mistake that was made that our brains are just like, oh, this is normal. It's important for you to find that advocate. It is important for me to maintain those advocate relationships that I have. Again, this is not something that we can do alone. We need to have those other people in our lives who are able and willing to help us with the conversations, with the relationships, with the tough decisions that we're finding ourselves in. If you have one of these advocates in your life, that's awesome. And I'm so happy that you have someone who can help you on this journey. If you don't have someone like that, they are absolutely worth looking for. They are worth the time and the resources in order to help you find the people who are going to assist you in pushing further than you would be able to do by yourself. An advocate is an ally, and every hero has their allies and their mentors who help them get to where they need to be and do the important tasks that only they can do. Keep looking for them. Keep looking for them for yourself. And if there is ever a chance that you can become an advocate for someone else, take it. It is such a privileged and honoring place to be. And hold that with the most gentle care that you can. We'll talk again next week. I hope you found this inspiring. And until then, live strong for today.